Hi guys, my name is Emily. Welcome back to another Top 5 Wednesday. Top 5 Wednesdays were created by Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey. All the information for the group is in the description box down below. Please join us. Join us for another fun year of Top 5 Wednesdays. Today is January 18th. I skipped last week because I didn't have favorite debut novels that I'm looking forward to. Today, I am talking about my favorite polarizing books. The things that I've picked here aren't necessarily my favorite books, but these are the things that I think really cause a lot of discussion and debate, and these are my favorites of those debates and the fandoms and the clashes. I'm going to start with probably the obvious one that I think was on everybody's mind in 2016, and that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. This garnered hugely opposing reactions from people. People either loved it and gushed about it, or they were like me, and they were devastated and confused. It's so interesting to see both sides, to see the love and the people who are just willing to love this thing that was such a huge part of their childhood, and then to see the heartbreak from people who love this series and grew up with this series and were just so disappointed that 10 years worth of thinking and talking and loving Harry Potter didn't really change anything for J.K. Rowling. It's a very interesting, polarizing book. The next thing I have on this list, again, I was sort of in the middle of for the longest time, and that is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This was a book that when I first started watching BookTube, everybody and their mother had read and talked about, because of course when I first started BookTube, you Google like books, reviewing books, and like the big names come up, and all of the big names were reading YA, they were reading the popular series, they were post Harry Potter, they were grasping onto any sort of franchise or anything that had a Harry Potter feel, and this very much does have that feel, in my opinion. And so you had people who loved this so much. At the opposite end, people in my real life were reading these things and were hating it, were involved in the fan communities, and there's some sort of issue in terms of the validity of Claire's writing, some sort of drama about her plagiarizing stuff in her fan fiction, and then her fan fiction getting published into this in a slightly different format. This book seems to really draw people apart, people who really hate Cassandra Clare for all of this stuff that seems totally unanswerable at this point because all of the proof has disappeared. Because I did try and look into it and I just got a bunch of hearsay, like the actual proof had disappeared. And then you have the rabid fan base, the devoted, loving fan base. So when I finally picked this up, I'd heard from both camps. I mean, if I ignore this part, this little doubting part, I mean, it is a fun story and I can see why people love it. The next thing that I sort of see polarized reactions on is The Lord of the Rings, the whole Tolkien fandom. So it seems like you are either allowed to be a movie fan, or you have to be wholeheartedly devoted to all of Tolkien's work. There's some sort of bizarre rating system that somebody tried to explain to me once, and like even Tolkien's son wasn't the top scoring person on this list, that most Tolkien scholars who study Tolkien professionally for a living only score like an 8 on this scale. So you find like these really, really rabid fans who sort of don't allow you to casually enjoy Tolkien. You have to fucking love Tolkien. Tolkien has to be your life. You have to read the book and then turn around and read it again, and then turn it around and read it again, and turn it around and read it again, and like memorize every single word, and you'll be able to tell like this, like if you played 20 questions with a true Tolkien fan, you would never guess the character that they are talking about, because they will have picked some obscure character that's mentioned once that has like a throwaway line about their background. And yeah, I have discovered since posting my thoughts about Tolkien on the internet that you cannot casually enjoy The Lord of the Rings. For people who casually enjoy the books, or who don't enjoy the books because they're really dense, they are not the most accessible fantasy literature. They may be very foundational, they may be very important, they may be very well thought out, very well developed, rich worlds that shaped the genre as a whole, but it is a commitment to read Lord of the Rings. And while my academic person can appreciate the work, I feel like I'm much more of a casual Tolkien fan in that I enjoy the movies and I appreciate the books, but I don't have the fan score to qualify me for fandom. And it's been a really bizarre experience to talk about Tolkien on the internet, and I'll probably get some flack for it in this video just mentioning this, but I find it's a really polarizing text. People fanatically love it and feel that they have some sort of high and mighty status as superfans, or they sort of casually love it and they get sort of stepped on if you are a casual lover of the series. It's a bizarre thing. It's a bizarre, polarizing, important text in a genre that I love. The next book that I am going to talk about is Twilight, the Twilight franchise by Stephenie Meyer. Now, this was a book that when I read it when it first came out, before it was famous, I liked it. It was fun, it was cute, it was romantic, it was a fast-paced read. I was like 13 and had no critical reading skills, no interest in gender studies or healthy relationships. I just was looking at this cute story. And then the rabid fan base happened. The movies happened. Gorgeous Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were cast to be these iconic characters, and it blew up. You were either someone who loved Twilight, or you didn't. And I feel like at that point, when that massive division happened, I ended up on the not so loving it end, and then I read them as an adult and I became even more critical of this series. So it's interesting because I feel like I've kind of been on both ends. I don't feel indifferently about Twilight. I definitely am in more of the concerned, critical side of this readership. Finally, we have The Stand by Stephen King. This is a book that I read last year. It's a book that a lot of people pushed me to read. They really encouraged me as a Stephen King fan to read this book. As it came up, people either loved it, The Stand is their favorite, or they hated it. And I was curious where I would fall on that. I actually posted a review for it and then took it down because people got really aggressive and upset with me because I did not like this. I thought it was too long. It has multiple points of view, and I didn't care about enough of the characters. I mean, overall, the plot is sort of weak. I had some issues with the language and the reality and the presentation of characters. And I mean, as much as this is a piece of literature in its time, as an academic, for me, the author is dead. I don't really care about King's authorial intentions. I shouldn't care about King's authorial intentions. At this point, I don't. But when I posted the review, I was curious, and that was part of the backlash that I got. The author is dead. This text has to stand alone. And I feel like I have a lot of issues with the text. As much as people love this text, I have definitely fallen into the camp of people who do not love this text. I mean, I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I have experienced this. I'm familiar with the narrative. I'm familiar with Randall Flagg, who shows up in other of King's works, but it's definitely not a favorite, and it's a book that causes me a lot of internal conflict. So those are 5 books that polarize readership and sort of where I fall on them and my interest in these texts and my experience with these texts. Let me know in the comments down below, what is one polarizing text that you have read and where you fall on that spectrum. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.